I'll be honest, most of the time I don't play the classics. Most of the time I just like to play in the sandbox and piece together something that I like. This recipe has made me reconsider my approach a bit. Chana Masala is part of the Indian canon for a reason, right? Chickpeas simmered in a spiced tomato sauce. It is such an addictive combo. It doesn't hurt that this recipe is pretty easy to put together since it's mostly made up of pantry staples. Heck, that's exactly why I cooked it. It was a last-minute decision on recipe day, and it kind of blew my mind how well it turned out. So let's get into it. A can of chickpeas will definitely save you some time, but you're trading off flavor and texture versus the dried ones. I dumped 2 cups of dried chickpeas into a bowl with 4 cups of filtered water and let these sit for about 4 hours. And like that, voila, they've nearly doubled in size. I drained off all the soaking liquid and gave these a quick rinse. These little guys were ready to go. I added the soaked chickpeas into a small saucepan, covered them again with water, and put them over a medium-high flame to simmer for about 30 minutes. I added salt about 15 minutes in so the chickpeas wouldn't get too hard. The tomato sauce in this recipe is naturally acidic, so it can result in a less than desirable hard texture in the final result. Legumes, like chickpeas and other beans, are best cooked in water for most of the way rather than cooking them from the start in your sauce. So when the time was up, I drained them and set them aside. As for the sauce, I approached building my paste like this. I chose my aromatic ingredients, garlic, ginger, turmeric, and a couple of green chilies. Then I chose my dry ingredients, cumin, nigella, fennel, and coriander seeds. I've also used a garam masala blend, which is loaded with baking spices like cinnamon, clove, and mace. So the aromatics get chopped, the seeds get toasted, and everything gets blended with a bit of water to turn it into a paste. The next ingredient in the mise en place is tomato. I usually pass these through a food mill to get a uniform texture, but I was feeling lazy and decided to just smash them up in the sauce while I was cooking. With everything prepped, I was ready to get this chana masala cooking. As for the first magic moment when I fry the paste in the hot coconut oil and then temper in the tomatoes, about that. So when someone tells you to buy this cheap $7 remote control for your camera because it works great, maybe don't. Apparently when I pressed record, nothing happened and the footage is lost in time. So, well, now that you've used the power of your imagination to see the first step, let's check back into what it looks like next. This is the product of the last 5 minutes of unrecorded cooking. This chunky amber-colored curry. It's the combination of our masala paste that was fried in coconut oil, dusted with garam masala, and combined with tomatoes. I added in some extra heat with this great chili powder, and once that was stirred in, I added the chana to the masala. The next bit is where it all comes together, and it's by leaving it alone to simmer. All it needs is some occasional stirring and maybe a splash of water if it gets too tight. This went for an hour, long enough for the chickpeas to get to that perfect, tender but firm texture. Since I had some time to kill while the flavor developed, I put together a couple of accompaniments to the main event. First was a pot of basmati. I decided to try out the cook rice like pasta technique here, and I was pretty happy with the results. I dropped a cup of unwashed rice into some salted water at a rolling boil and let that cook for about 12 minutes. Then I strained it in the sink with a way too small strainer before returning it back to the pot. Into the hot rice, I added about a cup of frozen sweet peas, and there's plenty of residual heat in the rice to defrost the peas, which brings them up to the right temperature. This is one of my favorite go-to hacks to get a little extra green into just about any meal. For the crunchy condiment portion of the meal, I toasted some coconut flakes in a hot pan, just long enough for them to get golden. I don't mind if there's a couple of burny bits in there because they are very, very tasty. In a mortar and pestle, I added smoked salt, oregano, and marjoram and ground that all together before adding in a little smoked paprika. Then I took the freshly toasted coconut, hit it with a squeeze of lime, added in the herbs and spices, then gave it a toss. It's this awesome combo of fat, sweet, sour, smoky umami in there. I threw it back into the pan to crisp up just a little bit more after adding the lime juice, and then got ready to plate. As for putting this whole thing together, first there's the Chana Masala. I let this reduce down a bit so it's not too wet, not too dry, but super concentrated in flavor. There's the basmati and peas, which are the perfect foil to this, or really any curry. Then there's the crunchy condiment here, an optional addition, but something that I always love to have some version of on the table. When it comes to plating this, well, it's just about stacking up all the deliciousness. First goes the layer of basmati ready to receive, then the Chana Masala in all its addictive glory. Next, an impromptu flurry of chopped cilantro and a spoonful of this amazing coconut yogurt. Yogurt helps mellow out a spicy, flavorful curry like this and adds a nice tangy richness. Then some lily gilding with the crunchy condiment, a quick plate wipe, and oh good god, it is finally time to eat. Seriously, this was a perfect plate of food that I was not expecting to make me so happy in the moment. There's a million versions of this recipe, all as good as the next. It's a classic for a very good reason, but there is no doubt that I'm cooking this version again. Thanks everybody for stopping by. I'm going to see you next time. Bye now.